So with the Mavs recently losing to the Sacramento Kings in their most recent game, they are officially 2-1 in the Kyrie Luka era. The Mavericks, they built a pretty solid core of players on the team, as guys like Josh Green and Jaden Hardy have finally been unleashed. With the trade of trading Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, some picks in the trade for Kyrie. It's opened up some minutes for Josh Green and Jaden Hardy, and they've been able to thrive, especially Josh Green, who's been probably having his best season in his young career. So also guys like Christian Wood, him coming back, and Reggie Bullock finally playing good. I mean, he's been pretty much a surprise for this team post Kyrie trade. But the question comes up of if the Mavs can keep up this high level of play and if the role players can stay consistent overall this season. So in today's video, I'll explain how the Mavericks can stay relevant in the West and how they can potentially win the West this year, depending on what happens. So we'll get into it right now. So firstly, we have the roster overall. Taking a look at their starting five, it's Luka and Kyrie at the 1 and 2 in the backcourt, THJ, Tim Hardaway Jr. at the 3, Josh Green at the 4, and then Dwight Powell at the 5. So on paper, I mean, this lineup looks pretty subpar as guys like Wood and Hardy, they're both coming off the bench. And recently, when Wood came back, he's been off the bench recently, which is pretty much questionable in my opinion, but I'll get into that later on in the video. But, I mean, the lineup isn't really actually as bad as people think it is. Looking at the backcourt, I mean, Luke and Kyrie obviously being a high offensive duo in the backcourt. Tim Hardaway Jr. being a capable three-point shooter. Josh Green also being a capable three-point shooter. Also being able to lock it down on defense. And then Dwight Powell being a defensive center. So, I mean, obviously, this lineup isn't that great. Looking at the backcourt, their defense needs some more work. Josh Green at the 4 is pretty much an undersized matchup. I mean, if I look at his overall stat, or not stats, but his height overall, he is playing the 4 position at 6'5", 200 pounds. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty undersized. It's definitely questionable, but it gives the offense a lot more versatility in transition. I mean, he's going to be able to run out in transition, get some easy buckets. But on the defensive end, I mean, he's pretty much undersized at that. And also we got guys like Dwight Powell at the 5, who offensively isn't that great. Tim Hardaway Jr., he's a pretty streaky three-point shooter. And, I mean, there's a lot of things that the Mavericks need to fix in this roster. But specifically, the starting 5, there needs to be a lot of moving pieces. I think some guys off the bench need to come up into the starting 5. Some guys need to play some more minutes off the bench. And we'll talk about it here pretty quickly. So I think the way to fix this is to pretty much have Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench and start Josh Green at the 3. And then have Dwight Powell and Christian Wood run the front court. So this is how the starting 5 would look like. We'd have Luke at the 1, Kyrie 2. We'd probably have Josh Green at the 3, Dwight Powell at the 4, and then Christian Wood at the 5. I think that is probably the best, I would say the best starting 5 for this team on paper with what they're having or what they have right now. I mean, this changes the issue of having an undersized wing at the 4, and it gives the offense more options in Christian Wood if Kyrie and Lucas start off slow. I mean, I think last game against the Kings, both of them had some pretty slow games, especially Luka. So, I mean, slotting in Christian Wood at the 5, and having him being able to spot up as a guy on the wing, or even be a guy being in the post and just work there, could also give them some more offensive abilities in terms of options. And looking at for Green, I mean, he slots into the 3, making it easier for him to guard his assignment, but also being able to match up better against other wings. And, he won't be able to run in transition as better as he could being at the 4, but, I mean, he is playing some pretty high-level basketball as of late, so I don't really think that's too much of an issue. So the bench, it does get weaker. THJ and Jaden Hardy are both pretty streaky. I mean, Hardy is a rookie, so I will give him some slack. But, I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr., he's been one of the most streaky guys on the team. But that's where Kyrie comes in. I mean, Kyrie, he's able to come in to Jason Kidd's offense, and, Kidd can stagger him and Luka's minutes to where Luka and Kyrie can play majority of the first quarter, and then have Kyrie come in and play majority of the second, Luka in the third, and then have both of them come in at the fourth together. So I think that gives the offense more versatility, being able to have a guy like a Kyrie run the bench unit with Tim Hardaway Jr., Jaden Hardy, Reggie Bullock, JaVale McGee, have all these guys run with Kyrie, and I think it could definitely be more of a stable offense compared to before Kyrie, where they had guys like Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith. I mean, Dinwiddie he is a capable ball handler at that, but not on the level of Kyrie. So yeah, with Kyrie on the team, it makes it a lot easier for the bench to have a proven point guard, because I think that was really one of their biggest weak sides, was not having a guy that can run the offense off the bench. They had guys like Kemba Walker who they tried to experiment with. He ended up getting waived, unfortunately, but it did work some games. It didn't really work other games, but with a guy like a Kyrie coming in, I think it shouldn't be too much of an issue with him with him running the bench. So yeah, and like I said, guys like Reggie Bullock and McGee, they're gonna get into the mix here, and hopefully we see some more JaVale McGee. I mean, he's been, I would say, not used properly in both the offense and the defense. Although he's been playing pretty subpar whenever he did get minutes, I think he could be a big contributor off the bench, being a guy that can block shots and grab rebounds and just be a vet overall for the team. So, and with the guys like Reggie Bullock too, good three-point shooter. I mean, the first game with Kyrie, he dropped like 18 or 15 points in the first quarter or the first half. He was pretty good in that game too. So, I mean, adding his three-point shooting and his defense alongside JaVale McGee with his rebounding and his blocking ability, adding that with Kyrie's ability to run the offense and be a good, ball handler for the second unit, I think the second unit is going to be a lot more formidable than people think it is. And, with post-Kyrie trade, this team is looking a lot more deadlier in the West. So, the question arises, like I said at the beginning of the video, the question arises of if the Mavs have what it takes to win. And to put it shortly, I think it's yes. Absolutely yes. They have a very explosive duo on offense in Kyrie and Luka. They also have some pretty capable role players in Christian Wood, Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., Dwight Powell, JaVale McGee, Reggie Bullock, even Jaden Hardy. They can also provide a mix of offense and defense. I think it's really just a matter of if they can all stay consistent. I mean, Luka, we all know what you can get out of him, but even guys like Kyrie, he's been having his fair share of off games sometimes. I mean, he will shoot pretty inefficiently from the field, but I think he definitely has the capabilities of being that guy that can run the second unit. With guys like Luka Doncic on the team, it shouldn't be too much of an issue of this team to be pretty bad on offense. So you guys can let me know what you guys think about the Dallas Mavericks. Do you guys have them coming out the West, and do you guys have them basically winning the West? Because I think with the West being a lot more competitive now with guys like KD coming to the Suns, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's definitely packed. I mean, the Lakers, they're still there too. The Mavericks, they're still there. Obviously the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors, the Memphis Grizzlies, Denver Nuggets. It's definitely going to be more or less a rat race in the last couple games here for the West. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully the Mavericks can make it out. That's the end. And I'm out.